Hello and welcome to F1 Daily, your daily dose of Formula One right here on the F1 World. I hope everybody watching is absolutely awesome tonight. It's a bit of a warm one here in the UK. I don't know what it's like where you are in the world, but we're not going to talk about weather. We are here to talk about Formula One. I will be coming to you as ever. Chat throughout this stream for lots of your reaction, but tonight we're going to be talking pretty much all about Red Bull. We've got some Pierre Gasly chat and also some interesting comments from Helmut Marko regarding Daniel Ricciardo. Yes, he's had his say. Of course he has. He likes to say things, does Helmut Marko, but he does give us little tidbits like this. Also, at the bottom of the screen, you will see scrolling in the latest tab some information regarding Force India that's come out today and the Mazepins, who are not very happy about the way that the Strolls acquired the team. But we're going to find a little bit more out about that one and discuss it tomorrow night with John T and Dan. But let's hop straight into tonight's stuff because loads to talk about. A bit more reaction on Gasly because obviously, if you were watching last night, you'll know that I kind of got caught out by the news because it went live or it broke literally 10 minutes into the stream. So I've got Twitter open just in case they try anything like that again. But yeah, so a little bit more reaction to that. We'll kick off with that top topic, and on the off chance you did miss the news that broke last night, Red Bull have confirmed that Pierre Gasly will partner Max Verstappen at the team next season. As I say, it was revealed last night, about 10 minutes into the stream, which was very kind, but it wasn't particularly big surprising news. We've all really been expecting it since Daniel Ricciardo was confirmed for Renault for 2019, and although Carlos Sainz was in the frame for a lot of people, I think Pierre Gasly was probably the one that we were all expecting. By the way, I will come to your super chat shortly, I promise. I'm just going to get through this bit very, very quickly. But the statement last night was pretty much what you'd expect from teams and what we've come to expect from, a lot of thanks and a fair whack of, we promise this is the best decision ever and all that sort of thing. You know the thing I mean, the official lines from teams. But there has been more reaction from Pierre today. Yes, you've probably read it. But we'll get to that in just a moment. But he was asked what it means to be given the chance at Red Bull, to which he answered, if you look at Red Bull, since they joined Formula One, they've always fought for championships or victories every season, and that's what I wanted, to join a top team. I'm a really competitive guy, and when I do something, it's always to fight for the best and top positions, so that's one of the main points, to be in position where I'll be able to fight for the top step. And one other point that was put forward to him, which I found quite interesting actually, which we didn't read last night, was that he was asked about his experience with Honda and how important that could be for 29 at Red Bull. He went on to say to that, I already know the people, so for sure it's a good experience. I know the way they communicate, the way they work. I know the geography of Japan, which is a different culture to what we experience in Europe. So for sure it's beneficial, and the experience of driving with them this year with their engine, I know their strengths. I know where they can improve. So for sure, bringing that experience next year is always useful. That is a big point. A lot of you in the comments section yesterday, and quite a few in chat as well when we're live, we're talking about how crucial that experience could be with that Honda engine. It's not going to be huge, it's not going to be, he's not going to hop in at Red Bull next year and beat Verstappen because he's had a year with a Honda engine or anything stupid like that. But the feedback he's got and the knowledge that he can then throw at Red Bull is quite pivotal, and it could be very interesting early on in the season to see how he can really take that to the team, because I think there is concern over Honda, and we will talk about that later with the Daniel Ricciardo stuff. So, it's I'm quite impressed with that, and I think it just shows for me his mindset. He's very much already focusing on what information or what experience he can take into next season. How long he's known, I don't know, but he was asked, yes, here we go, about how he was told and how he found out the news about his promotion. Oh dear. To which he said the following: when Helmut started the call with me, I was in my underwear. Yes, he was. He said, just to let you know, we've made our decision and we'd like you to race alongside Max. When the call ended, I ran around the house shouting to my mates and they all jumped in the pool straight away. There was so much excitement and I was so happy because it's something I've wanted for a long time. I mean, underwear aside, or maybe not, this reaction and all that just goes to show how much it really does mean to him, to be honest, doesn't it? And, the passion he's obviously got and how badly he wants that drive. But I just thought that was worth mentioning. Not worth mentioning, it was a funny side to him. Probably what we're going to get a lot of from Pierre Gasly next year when he gets alongside Max Verstappen. Not two people in their underwear, that's not what I'm saying. But just a little bit of absolute chaos between them. So looking forward to that, off track, of course. But on to the crux of it all, which I guess is the title of the video. We're well into this and I've not even got there yet. Is this the right call from Red Bull? I'm going to come to you guys in the chat in a few. But for me, as I said last night, and I did it in my reactions video, my reactions news video, can we call it that? Something like that. I think it's absolutely the right call. You know, does he have a mountain of F1 experience? No. Is he going to struggle against Max Verstappen next year? Probably. I don't think he's going to struggle as much as people say or seem to think he will, but he's not going to go in, like I said earlier, and just completely destroy Max Verstappen or even match him. You know, Verstappen's been there now for a while. He's got a lot of experience in the team, but it's a good one. It's a good dynamic, and I think it'll work very well for the team, and they get on, and it's just everything I said last night. It'll be perfect for Red Bull, and it just seems like the right choice. But back to that experience thing. Now, if you follow me on Twitter, you'll know I had a bit of a moan this morning about people putting him down before he's even got in that car. And I don't, you know, if he had been, let's say they promoted Brendan Hartley. As much as I like Brendan Hartley, I could understand that criticism. But for a guy who's been very good this year, for people to be writing him off before he's even sat in that Red Bull is massively frustrating, in my opinion. So, I just see somebody say I have a moan all the time on Twitter. I do like to moan on Twitter. It's kind of the thing I do. But I'm not, you know, he has been one of the standout performers this year. And I'm not just talking about his point scoring. You know, great, Bahrain, fantastic, brilliant in Monaco. But I'm not just talking about that. He's been, just on the whole, on and off track, he's had a great attitude, and that was shown in his reactions there. He's been pretty much spot on considering his lack of experience. But I don't like the fact they're using that lack of experience as a negative against him. The truth is, Red Bull like to promote young drivers. They are perfectly comfortable taking a gamble on youth. Max Verstappen, anyone, as an example. Yeah, all right. He's a big future star. He was a big future star, was rising through the ranks, a lot of hype behind Max Verstappen. But, and this is going to go down really well. I can just imagine how well this is going to go down, but just hear me out. Max Verstappen had a lot less experience than Pierre Gasly when it came to Formula One. Not in terms of, obviously, the time in F1, but in how they got there. Gasly raced in a lot more races than Max. All right, he's a little bit older. I think Pierre did 130-something races versus Max's 40-something. So he's not inexperienced in that respect, if that makes sense. And that's not taking anything away from Max. You know, his wins to race ratio is ridiculous. It's fantastic. Max Verstappen's one of the best, you could say, very young, but still, you know, 40, I did write the numbers down, I've forgotten them, but I think he won a hell of a lot more races than Pierre Gasly. I think it was 15 plays 13 in a third of the races, effectively. So you can understand why Max was given that opportunity. But Gasly had a couple more years coming through the ranks, and so he's got a lot of experience. So for people to say, oh, he's not ready, he's not good enough, he hasn't got the experience, is rubbish. You know, the guy he's racing against had a lot less experience in the junior categories. And like I said on Sunday, you can't always compare junior categories to Formula One. You can't do that because it's a completely different world. But it's a fact. He did. And if anybody wants to come and say, oh, yeah, well, you know, let me think of an example. Somebody in the comments the other day was talking about how, oh, it's too soon for Pierre Gasly because he hasn't been in Formula One very long. So this is too much of a promotion to Red Bull. Here's a stat for you. By the time they get to Australia next season, Pierre Gasly will have competed in 26 Grand Prix before he was promoted to Red Bull. Max Verstappen only had 23 Grand Prix. So there we go. That's what I'm talking about. Again, I'm not knocking Max. It's nothing against him at all. But the facts are there. And to dig Pierre's lack of experience is pretty much invalid, especially if those same people are then saying that Max was ready, which some of them were. So that's kind of my little rant for today. I hope you understand what I mean by that. I'm not attacking Max Verstappen. I'm really not. No issue with him at all. But you can't say that Gasly's got no experience when he, coming into Formula One, had more than Verstappen. So I have written the stats down. I'll see if I can get them up for tomorrow, actually, because it's quite interesting. I was surprised. I know Gasly had more experience. I knew he had done more races, but I was surprised how many more he'd done. Like I said there, I think 131 plays 47. So that's a lot of experience. So, yeah, I'm trying not to be too harsh about it, but, you know, there you go. But before we get into your guys' reactions, aside from Gasly, when we get back to the point, who really was there for Red Bull? You know, there was Carlos Sainz, but no way really. You know, there was too much previous apparently between him and Max. Jean-Eric Vergne has been linked to it, but as much as I would love to have seen him come back to Formula One, and he may still with somebody like Haas, for example, maybe they are in for him, but I just never believed the Red Bull thing was ever pretty much on. And as I remember, Jean-Eric Vergne pretty much said that was not going to happen anyway, so that was not the case. Ocon, Yeah, I am really concerned about him. Would be great to see him in that car. I mean, Ocon and Verstappen, if you've not seen, get on YouTube. When they were racing, when they were younger, some fantastic fights, well worth a watch. But I just never believed that was really on for him. So if we're being completely honest, and with the greatest of respect to Pierre, there weren't a huge amount of options out there to replace Ricciardo, if that makes sense. So again, I'm trying not to attack people. I sound like I'm really, really going at it today, but a little bit frustrated. Let's get some of your reactions in chat. I will get your super chats, I promise, by the end. I've got stream labels open. So Jonty, hello Jonty, good evening, sir. Says Max has never been ready for any series. Jos pulled him through as fast as possible. Max was just good enough to make it seem like he was ready and was ultimately become ready on the job. Possibly, we do like to disagree from time to time, Jonty. Possibly, I can understand what you're saying, but maybe a little bit harsh on him when he was younger there. But I agree, he has learned a lot of what he's learned on the job, as you say there. When he got to F1, he had to learn it all, didn't he? So there you go. I'm going to take my hat off. It's really hot, really, really hot. So Ocon should go to McLaren, says Racing. Fully expecting that or Williams, if we're being honest. If he's not in the sport, I mean, you can be quite harsh on drivers racing. I know you can, but I think even you'll agree that Ocon should be in F1 when you consider some that are going to be keeping their seats. And yeah, let's not get into that. Gasly's going to be amazing at Red Bull Racing, says Emmy. I think he's a great fit, and I think it's going to work very, very well. Very excited for next year. You've got, let me have a think. You've got Gasly and Verstappen next year. You've got Ricciardo and Hulkenberg. I can't wait for that one either. You've possibly got Stroll and Perez together. So it's kind of, I'm just looking forward to all these different dynamics and who's going to beat who. And if Van Dorn keeps his seat at McLaren, can he take the fight to Sainz, which he's not been able to do for Alonso? So really looking forward to next year. Really, really looking forward to it. But there's still like 9 races left of this year, so let's not get too ahead of ourselves. Not wish this year away. Max won his first race for Red Bull too. Yes, he did, Red G. Absolutely. Maybe Pierre could do it in Australia. Be a big ask, but you never know. Will Gasly get a win in 2019, says Timon? I'm going to say Timon. I'll go for Timon. Yeah, why not? You know, if the car is good enough, it's all going to come down to Honda. We've said it a lot. It'll all come down to Honda. It's a little bit like pre-season when everything we seemed to answer was it's all going to come down to Renault. So flip that to Honda. Pretty much it's all going to come down to what kind of power unit they can deliver. David Thompson says, I think he has a chance of giving Max a good challenge. I think he's going to be closer, as I said at the start, than people are giving him credit for. A lot of people are saying that he's going to be destroyed by Max Verstappen. He probably is going to be beaten by him this year or next year because it's his first season in the team. Certainly sort of the first half of the season, but I think he's going to be a lot closer come the end of the year than people realise. I'm not expecting him to be beating him next year and thrashing him or anything like that, but he'll be good. It's all just simply Gasly, says Scotty McNichols. Mab says Toro Rosso will be sold in 2021. You never know. Honda might decide to take him if this Aston Martin or Porsche deal comes off a Red Bull that everyone keeps talking about. You just never know. A few more comments on this one before I roll on to the next one. It's kind of scary to think about how quickly Gasly might be in the Red Bull. I mean, it won't be before Australia, unless Daniel Ricciardo decides he's had enough, which I'd highly doubt. But yeah, I mean, who do you think is going to fill that seat at Toro Rosso, just before I go on to the next point? Because that's really the next seat to keep an eye on, because I think that's all going to come down to McLaren, isn't it, and what they decide. Norris seems to be the favourite. At the minute, my gut's telling me Hartley will stay, but then having said that, my gut also told me that Daniel Ricciardo was staying at Red Bull, and I was completely wrong on that one, so who knows. But I think Norris has got a great shout. I can't see them wanting to go for 2 new drivers. Some in the comments today to the video that I put up about who's under pressure said that maybe Ocon could go there. I mean, that would be a big thing for Red Bull to take on 2 drivers that have nothing to do with them, if that makes sense. You know, I think they'd like to keep a Hartley. Some say Sean Galeo. He's got ties to the team. I'm not a huge fan of him. He's not an awful driver, but he's never struck me as a guy not good enough for F1, but certainly not ready for F1 at the moment. But you never know. He's got ties to the team, so he could do. Fukuzumi and Makino have been mentioned a lot. They've not got enough points for a super license. Neither's Dan Ticktum. I do wonder if they might make some special dispensation for him. I don't know, given the 2-year ban that he had, because he would have had the enough if he'd not had that 2-year ban. But then rules are rules, and if you start messing around like that, then there's pointless having them. So I think Hartley will stay right now, and probably Norris. Just going to get some of your actions. Just see some people saying Vettel will go back to Toro Rosso. That would be a hell of a story, wouldn't it? That would definitely be a breaking news stream. There's no denying that. Norris, Buemi. Yeah, a few people this last few days have been talking about Buemi. I don't know if that's because of all the talk that Jev might come back. That's maybe triggered that in their minds or something, but it's a possibility. Vern, I can't see him wanting to go to Toro Rosso. I'm not convinced. I know it's Formula One, and Formula One is a much more attractive prospect than Formula E. I get that. And the point I was making the other day, which I think kind of got lost a little bit in one of my little rambles, was that Verne would absolutely come back to Formula One if he had the chance, but does he want to do it in a Toro Rosso that's been used effectively as a test platform for Red Bull and might end up trundling around 19th and 20th every race? I can't see it. If a seat at Haas opens up, could totally see that, but I think it's all going to come down to Leclerc there. We'll get into that one another day. Alex Albon, that's another good shout race, and I talked about him the other day actually. He's a driver, I think it was Sunday, that has those Red Bull ties in the past like Hartley did. You know, he was brought back in, maybe they'll do the same, and he's been really good this year. For a guy that didn't really have a seat at the start of the season in Formula 2 and had to kind of fight to keep it, he's been really impressive this year, and he could be a good shout if they want to go that way. The other one I might mention is, I've said Sean Galale, so I won't mention him again, but possibly Van Dorn. That's another one, you know, I'm wondering, somebody pointed out in the comments earlier, it was a great point, I'm going to put it to you, but then I am going to get on to the next point because I risk overrunning for the second one in a row. But somebody said to me in the comment section to the video today, maybe there's something behind why Norris is filling that seat for Alonso in FP1 this Friday. Perhaps it is for McLaren to get some kind of reference point between Norris and Van Dorn. Tinfoil hats on. And maybe, just maybe, whoever comes out on top in that, or maybe if they do another session in a couple of races' time, whoever they feel is the better option, they'll take them to McLaren and they'll offer the other one to Toro Rosso for make weight in the James Key deal. So it could be Norris or Van Dorn at Toro Rosso. If it were me and I was in McLaren's position, I would keep Van Dorn just to steady the ship for another year, see how he does against Sainz, and then take Norris and give Norris a year's experience in Toro Rosso. We were talking about Toro Rosso, Sean. Come on. In Toro Rosso. So I think that'll be good for him, but it's definitely one. Shadow fans, I think that was my comment. I can't remember. I get so many, and I read so many, respond to as many as I can. So, yeah, it wouldn't be an F1 Word live stream without overrunning. That's absolutely true. What's happening with other teams, i.e. Ferrari? Mr. Tree, if you could join us tomorrow, mate, we will be talking about that with Dan, who's going to be making his F1 Word stream debut as well. So we'll get some extra fresh opinion on that one. So we will be discussing that a little bit more tomorrow. Kimi can't win in F1 again. Seems harsh, but you never know. If I were Toro Rosso, I'd give James Key to McLaren for a permanent deal with Van Dorn. Interesting. I like that. That's a fair point, yeah. But I think it's going to be one of those two is going to be used as kind of like a make weight in that deal. But let's leave all this Pierre Gasly and whatnot chat for now. We're not going to leave Red Bull, though, because I've got more to say. Because, as I said, Mr. Marko, yes, he's been talking again. So I'm going to stick with Red Bull for this last one, and more specifically those comments made by Helmut Marko regarding Daniel Ricciardo's decision to move to Renault for 2019. Did you know he's going to Renault? It's hardly been mentioned. He said, and it just piqued my interest, another one of those. Sometimes it happens when I read something and go, interesting. But he said, I don't understand it. It was a very strange situation anyhow. The negotiations were difficult, but the Wednesday before the Austrian Grand Prix, we were talking for 2 hours and came to an agreement. During the weekend, we were talking and renegotiating again. In Hungary, he told Mr. Massachusetts, I can never say his name, and me that he was okay with everything, that he was going to sign during the post-Hungarian Grand Prix test on Tuesday, but he didn't. On the Thursday, he then called and told me he was going to Renault. He then finished his quote with, I could only assume that maybe he doesn't believe in the Honda project or that Renault offered him a lot of money. I know it's Helmut Marko, so please everybody just take this with a whopping great bucket of salt, because he's got a habit of getting out there and giving the pot a good stir, and he's not always 100% accurate. But given all the stuff that was coming out from Red Bull and all this, we guarantee he will sign, he is 100% staying, it all kind of ties in and makes a lot of sense. It really does. I promise I'll come to you in chat in a moment for this one, because it really got me interested. So it sounds as though maybe playing them is a little bit harsh, but it sounds as though Ricciardo has been kind of weighing up his options, even when he's negotiating, maybe going to Renault and saying, hey, this is what I've got from Red Bull, what can you offer me? I don't know. I'd love to hear his side to this story, because it's quite an interesting one. You all know how I love a good tinfoil hat theory and whatnot, and like to go too deep into these sorts of things. But one thing I will say, and I said it when he signed, I don't think it's come down to money. I really don't. I mean, will he be paid better than he was at Red Bull? Absolutely, almost certainly. But that's not why he's moving. I'm not even sure that it comes down to the change of scenery that he was talking about. I just believe and see a lot more credibility in the comments about how he doesn't have faith in Honda and would prefer to stick with a power unit that he's known for so long. No, that Renault unit is not reliable, but at least he knows there will be some power coming from it, and despite their impressive steps forward this year, he doesn't know for sure what that Honda engine is going to do. It could be the most powerful thing we've ever seen in Formula 1 history, but blow up 6 laps from the end of every Grand Prix, or it could be the most reliable engine we've ever known, but he has to settle for P14 every weekend. So I think there's a lot of that in there. Money will be a part of it because he's not going to go there for £3.50 an hour or anything stupid like that. He's going to want a decent paycheck, a damn sight more than he was on at Red Bull. But I don't think that's where his mind was made up. We talked about this when he made the decision, and I said, sometimes in Formula 1, it is better the devil you know. And because Red Bull are now switching to Honda, they're not the devil he knows anymore, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the way I see it. And maybe he would rather go somewhere like Renault where he knows he's going to get a half-decent power unit. Nothing amazing. But yeah, and I think he's not young like Max. And so he can't really afford to wait or afford to be offering Honda too much time. You know, he's running out of time if he wants to be fighting for these world titles in the future. And that's something that, you know, he's not going to be doing with Renault until 2021 at the absolute earliest, but at least he can spend this next 2 years settling in, getting to know the team and adapting to them as well. And the truth is, if I'm being really harsh, I don't think Red Bull will be fighting for world titles till 2021 either. So why go through 2 years of what could end up being pain at Red Bull with the Honda engine when he can go and race with the same power unit he's been using for the last few years and at least pick up some good points finishes? But you know, spend that next 2 years settling in, get to know the team, adapting to them, and who knows, maybe even get the car and the team built around him. And that may have been a little bit of a draw as well. And I'm still not sure that there's possibly something going on with Adrian Newey, but that seems to be being quashed every single time it comes up. So I'm not entirely sure on that. Let's get a couple of your comments on this one then, because it just tempted me. Owen McGee says, watch Honda pull off the best power unit in F1 next year. I'm not going to sit here and say anything stupid. Like, if they do, I will, because they probably will, because my predictions are terrible. But I will be very surprised if that Honda engine is all that good. Danny Rick is still aiming at that Mercedes seat, replacing Lewis in 2021. Yeah, probably racing. I mean, it keeps his options open, doesn't it? You know, we were talking about yesterday, Vettel, Hamilton, Verstappen, Ricciardo. A lot of drivers now are going to be out of contract at the end of 2020. So those seats could open up, and you know, maybe not even the Mercedes seat. If we say Vettel doesn't do it at Ferrari and decides he's off to try at Mercedes, he goes there. Maybe Ricciardo gets the Ferrari seat. It really could be something like that. So Raul says, at the end of the day, Danny Rick knows where Renault is, and he sort of knows where Honda is. Plus, he also knows Red Bull Racing is to blame somewhat for their issues. Very good point. Very good point. Honda is underrated. I agree. Honestly, Max, I do, but I don't think they're not going to be bad next year. I don't foresee them being McLaren bad. But if there is some truth to what Cyril was saying, Mr. I don't know, a Beatbull, we'll go with it nice. I was going to give him a horrible name then, but Cyril a Beatbull was saying, if there's any truth in that about how Red Bull are kind of causing their own problems with anything like, I don't know, packaging, he didn't say that, but they're causing their own problems, then maybe Honda might start to struggle again, like they did with the problems they had with McLaren. So you never know. Marko or Prost, no-brainer. Okay. Maybe Rick could stay a couple of years to see Renault through to the top of the grid. I kind of feel that way. I think, you know, if he gets to the end of 2020 and they're on the brink of the title, or they're not on the brink of the title, but close to fighting for it, and he knows what's coming in 2021, he might want to stick around. So you never know. I think that if Vettel doesn't win the World Championship this year, he might crack a deal with Mercedes. Just a small thought, says Oliver. Scotty McNichols, I am not uncertain. Max and Gasly are not going to get along. Don't kid yourself. Those two are definitely coming together, entering a corner at some point. It's just a matter of when. I don't think they're going to be smashing into each other. A lot of people seem to think they will be, but I don't. At the start, this is going to sound really harsh and may contradict what I was saying about Gasly earlier, but I don't think they're going to be that close on track for the first few races next year. I think it's going to be a lot more calm than people are expecting, and there's a lot less beef, there with them, I suppose you could say. So I think they'll be fine. I think they're fine. They will come together at some point. Every teammate does. They always come together at some point, so it will happen. But I'm not entirely sure it's going to be as bad as people are worrying about. Renault and Honda are very close in performance-wise. See, I agree with that, Josh, but it kind of depends who you listen to. Renault will tell you that Honda are nowhere near them, and Honda will tell you that they're right on Renault. And I think we can see, as F1 fans, that Honda are a lot closer to Renault than I think Renault either realise or are willing to admit. But it's still a big gamble it's a big gamble for Ricciardo either way. If he goes to Renault and Honda turn up with a belting engine next year and Max Verstappen suddenly fighting for titles, he looks stupid. If Honda turn up and the engine's terrible and Max Verstappen and Pierre Gasly are 12th, 13th, 14th every race and Daniel Ricciardo's picking up the odd podium, he looks a genius. So it could go either way with that one. I'm really looking forward to it. But I want to enjoy this season before we get onto that one. A couple more points before I go to our question of the day and get your reactions to it. You'll probably see where we're going with the question of the day, but yeah. Renault have the power of bananas. It was a no-brainer for Daniel. Fair enough. Gasly and Verstappen to drop diss tracks on each other. Who knows? They're young, probably at some point. Gasly will know his job. There won't be any problems. I think that's... Yeah, I mean, he's probably going in as number 2 driver, but I don't think we're talking Schumacher Irvine, Schumacher Barrichello number 2 drivers. I don't think we're talking that. I think it will be come in, do as you're told, you'll get your chances, but I don't think it's going to be anything stupid, Max is faster than you or anything like that. So, but we'll see. We will see. Will Grosjean get the boots? That's something we're going to discuss tomorrow night, Keith. But thank you very much for your question, mate. Let's jump on to question of the day then. Then I'm going to do my super chats and I'll take some of your reactions. Give you time to think on this one, although I'm sure most of you will know where I'm going and probably have your minds made up for this one. But thank you as well, everybody that responded in the comments and in chat yesterday to yesterday's question. It definitely divided people. And the general consensus, and I might start doing polls for these actually, but the general consensus was that Alonso and McLaren have both contributed to each other's downfall. So let's take these two stories and use them as a bit of inspiration for question of the day. So, who has come out on top in terms of their seat for 2019? Daniel Ricciardo or Pierre Gasly? So who do you think has basically made the best move or has got the best out of all of these deals so far regarding them two? Now, I know a lot of you will probably say Gasly because Red Bull is strong this year, but don't forget Honda power next year. We just don't know. So just interested to know what you think. I will come to you in chat in just a second. If you're watching this after we've finished the stream, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. As I said yesterday, I may not respond to all of them, but I do read the overwhelming majority. So, yes, let's see. Daniel Ricciardo, Mr. Tree says Gasly has the best. Decnoid Ricciardo without a doubt would make more sense, Sean. Cravone Gaming says Pierre Gasly easily. ARF Gasly. Owen McGee Gasly. Total Gamer says Gasly. A lot of Gaslys here. Ricciardo, Pierre, Gasly, Ricciardo, Gasly, Alonso. There's always one. Thank you, Charlie. More Ricciardo, but sort of similar. That's a good point, actually, Philip Barber. That's a very good point. I gave you full name there. I should just start calling you Philip because you comment quite often. So, but yeah, that's a very good point. Could end up being quite equal next year. We could see what a fight that could be. If Red Bull aren't going to be fighting for the title next year and scrapping Mercedes and Ferrari, I'd take Mercedes and Ferrari doing their thing and then Red Bull, Renault and maybe Haas in a scrap for that 3rd, 4th and 5th. That would be quite nice. Both, says Max. Yep. Simply Gasly, says Scotty. Danny Rick making the better move. Banana Man says vlogging at Charlie. Yeah, a few say Maldonado. We always get Maldonados and Rosbergs. Ricciardo, Gasly. Yeah, so many. It's pretty much, I think we're going to end up with a 50-50 here pretty much. But I might start doing polls on these from now on, but we will go on to that in just a second. Let's have a look at your super chats. I assume they're going to come up on here, and they have not. Wonderful. Just a second. It's all a little bit slow today, the old YouTube, but they will be in here somewhere. I'll just find them out. James Simpson says, love the content, keep it up. Thank you very much, mate, and thank you for your contribution. We'll certainly try our best. Greg says, it's warm here in Scotland, Sean, keep it up. It's sweltering here, mate. It's absolutely sweltering. Thank you very much for your contribution. And Lunatic as well, I hope so. Pierre beat Max in next season. Keep up the good content. I will continue to try, mate, and thank you very much for your contribution as well. I'm going to take a couple more of your points in just a second. Just going to make sure I've got all the super chats. I did miss one last night. So if you are watching, apologies for that. But Lewis Timney made a contribution, and he said Norris to Toro Rosso most likely, and I've just got one from, of course, Vlogging at Charlie, who says, I thought I sided with Red Bull. What happened? Yes, I thought I've got somebody in the comments who thinks going to Ferrari next year, so it's going to be an interesting one. Maybe you will. Maybe you know something I don't know. So we will see. A couple more comments before I go then. Rico, thank you very much, sir. Says, also, congrats on hitting 7 million views. That's what I'm going to end on. Stuff it. I'm going to do that. Earlier today, the channel, we hit 7 million views, as you'll have heard there, and I put on Twitter, that is beyond anything I ever expected when I started YouTube just over a year ago, and it's been absolutely amazing this last 12 months. Great talking to you, love doing these F1 daily things, all the streams. We're building quite a team here and quite a community as well. Absolutely loving it, and 7 million views is beyond anything I ever expected, so thank you very much to everybody who's watched any of the content, who's subscribed. I can see loads coming in tonight. This last week has been mental on the channel. Felt like a big week for reasons that I'm not going to go into too much, but I'm sure you'll find some of it out at some point in the future. But loads of subscribers, loads of views. It's been brilliant. It's great interacting with you as well. So thank you very much for everything you're doing to support the channel. Thank you, everybody, for your contributions and whatnot tonight, and also for tuning in to Tuesday's F1 Daily. Guess what? We overrun on an F1 Word stream, only by a couple of minutes, so it's not too bad. Thank you for tuning in. I will be back tomorrow night, 8 p.m. UK time, but with guests for a full hour of F1 Daily. I'll be joined by John T and Dan, who's making his stream debut. He runs the YouTube channel, F1 Reviews, up-and-coming YouTuber. Really impressed with him. Go and check out his channel. That's at 8 p.m. tomorrow. The next video will, of course, be... brace yourselves, the Belgian Grand Prix preview on Thursday. F1 is back. I cannot wait for this weekend. In the meantime, though, you can follow me on social media. Links to Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and to Discord are all in the description down below. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.